Hello everyone, this is part 29 of What If Naruto Had a Secret, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Anko came out of her nap sharply, eyes searching her surroundings. According to her cage bunchen stationed at the village, there were two Jonin headed to the forest. She'd expected Mizuki and the courier to try and slip out unnoticed, not for the buyers to appear out of nowhere. Shifting slightly before climbing to her feet, Anko stretched, startling both Ino and Shino. Aha, it's a wonderful day for an ambush, ain't it? Ha, Ino asked, blinking, but staying carefully out of reach. Anko grinned at the girl, pleased at the unease Ino was displaying. To think all it had taken was some playful threats to teach the girl to watch her mouth. Walking over to the small fire, Anko crossed her arms and stared thoughtfully at the flames. We have two Jonin-level ninja headed for us, most likely the buyers. Which means we've got a serious problem. How, exactly we were discovered, and why they are heading this way. What about the courier and his escort? Shino asked calmly as he turned his attention to her. That's part of the problem, Anko allowed with a frown. If they knew about us, why not try and escape? Or, why didn't the two Jonin think to do that? Why come for us, and how can they know where we are? Perhaps Mizuki noticed us and informed the ninja, Shino offered. These two then decided to neutralize us in a preemptive strike and save themselves future trouble. A strong possibility, Anko agreed with a slight nod. Of course, these two could have Mizuki and the courier for being trailed and are coming here to show that Konoha ninja aren't anything. Maybe, Ino said softly, poking the fire with a stick. They Mizuki and the other guy took the information and are heading this direction because it's the most direct route into Konoha. I fail to see why they would wish to enter High no Kuni at the moment, Shino offered. It would make more sense to return directly to your home country to deliver the information. Ah, but how can you be sure that info is good, Anko said, smirking at Shino, unless you test it. I think Ino might be right, they're heading to High no Kuni to test the info they've gained. Then, what of Mizuki and the courier? Mizuki isn't stupid, Anko said, then paused, chuckling. Well, not entirely. After all, you don't make Chunin by being an idiot. He knows that you never give all your information up at once, you keep something, just in case. So, what do we do? Ino asked, looking up at her with a glint of determination. I'll stay to see off the two Jonin. Can't let either one reach High no Kuni, even a little information is a dangerous thing. But, I'll need help, Anko offered with a dark smile. As pig, so to speak. What was that? Ino said sharply, springing to her feet. Just an expression, Anko offered, rolling her eyes. Look, I can fight both Jonin, but at least one would break off and either follow you back to the village or go on to test the info. In which case, we lose them, Shino said. So, either myself or Ino must remain to help you keep the second Jonin occupied, while whoever does not stay enters the village and subdues Mizuki and the courier. Close, Anko said with a slight nod. Mizuki's too much of a risk, he'll have to be K. The courier is the only one to be subdued. Okay, Ino said with a scowl. So, like, who goes, and who stays? That's between you two. Just remember, whoever stays will most likely Anko said, then, watching the two turn to talk among themselves, crouched down to enjoy her dango and study the flames. Contemplating the brightening sky, the sun would be rising soon. She wondered how Naruto was doing. By all rights, he should have completed his mission and possibly even started his return trip to Konoha. Anko-sensei, Shino said, glancing at a frowning Ino. We feel that it would be best for me to go for the village. With the help of my Kikaichu, I can easily handle Mizuki and the courier. Also, between myself and Ino, I am the least likely to be noticed entering the village. Logical, well-reasoned, Anko said, nodding thoughtfully. Alright, get going. I'll keep the Jonin busy here, but don't waste time, K. What about me, though? Ino asked angrily. I'm not going to just sit on the sidelines. Don't worry, Anko said with an unpleasant smile. I'm sure one of the Jonin has a thing for young Konoha girls. Foreign ninja always do. Ni Yugito had earned her rank through a combination of sleek, though basic, taijutsu, ninjutsu, and her onijutsu, shikyotaki. She had, until this point, been the victor of every fight she had been in. The biggest trump she had was that her lightest touch could KO anyone in an instant, a death touch that she could not control. Yet this, Uzumaki Naruto, as strange as it seemed, was immune to her touch. Yugito had panicked for a moment. Nobody had ever been immune to her touch. Then she had realized the two possibilities. 1. The least likely, considering Konoha, was that he was Jinchuriki with the onijutsu of resurrection. The second and most likely was the fact that he had some unusual bloodline limit for healing. Nimbly dodging another wind spear, which she had never encountered before now, she brought her hands together for a basic lightning ninjutsu and created a powerful clap of thunder. Naruto reacted by covering his ears, prompting Yugito to rush in once more. Her round kick connected with his stomach, her butterfly round kick his shoulder, and the boy was left wide open for her flurry of punches and spear hands. The Chunin went down hard, but regained his feet with a simple shoulder roll. Yelling in frustration, Yugito threw a wild punch, and Naruto ducked under it. For a split second, he was visible, then he flickered from view before reappearing with a round kick in mid-attack. Yugito managed to block the kick, but before she could counter, he planted a sidekick in her ribs. Yugito went with the force of the blow and spun, SA spinning heel kick across Naruto's face. The younger ninja crashed to the ground in a spray of B, rolled to his feet once more, and turned, firing several kunai at her. Weaving her way through the hail of weapons, Yugito snagged the handle of one and spun her blade, scraping against the one he had aimed for her ribs. Panting, both ninja froze, then, kunai scraping once more, they leapt away from each other and landed lightly. Quote. Are you done flirting now? Yugito snapped, twirling her kunai around a finger as she stared at the surprised-looking boy. Ha! Oh, come on, Yugito said with a snort. I'm a freaking Jonin, runt, you think I couldn't tell you were just playing around? Well, Naruto said, smiling faintly, I was sorta hoppin'. Here's a hint. Try be some K-intent into your attacks if you wanna fake someone out, Yugito blandly suggested before snapping her kunai into an upright position and gesturing for him to attack. Now, let's stop with the foreplay and get to the good stuff. If you want, Naruto shot back, charging at her recklessly. Yugito began to counter, when she suddenly felt a spike of K-intent and dodged just as a few dozen kunai rained down from all around her. Landing, she felt her eyes widen as countless Kage Bunshin charged from all directions. Oh, he was good. Yugito became a blur of motion as she fought against the Kage Bunshin, her touch doing the job that it was unable to do against the original. Still, it seemed like a never-ending wave as Naruto after Naruto attacked. Sidestepping one, she SA backfist into his face, spinning him. Almost at the same time, one of her feet came up and then down, hard, into another's knee, cracking it. Both disappeared in a puff of smoke, even as another came hurtling through the drifting smoke. Grabbing his jacket on instinct, she cursed, seeing the exploding note, and threw him at a group of approaching Kage Bunshin. The explosion freed her to deal with another one grabbing her tea. Yugito threw an arm up, knocking his hand away, and, a second later, she had her kunai into his stomach. A simple sidekick sent another Kage Bunshin crashing into a tree, followed by a knife hand to the N1 on her right. Panting, she whipped around in time to duck under a punch, only to retrieve a knee to her face, followed by a punch. Stumbling, Yugito shook her head to clear it and swear, lashed out with her kunai, only to have Naruto disappear, then reappear in a mid-air attack. Crossing her arms, she blocked the downward punch, which the boy used to flip over her and SA sidekick into the small of her back. Stumbling, Yugito spun, AA palm heel into his nose, which resulted in a puff of smoke. Growing and frustrated, Yugito gathered the needed chakra and crashed her hands together, which resulted in a flash of lightning spearing from her and destroying the remaining Kage Bunshin. The real one swore and then charged, forming a seal as he did. A second later, Yugito was blown off her feet by a massive gust of wind, and she painfully into a tree. Gasping, she winced, then, sensing his next attack, shot her hand out, catching his punch. Now, this, she said, Meeting the boy's startled gaze as she grinned, is more like it. Then, before he could comment, she backhanded him, sending him staggering away. Naruto righted himself and, grinning as well, charged back in. Yugito countered with a twist kick to his ribs, followed by a sidekick. Muscles coiling, Yugito lunged for the wounded ninja, only to have him disappear in a shunshin. Skidding to a halt, Yugito felt a moment of confusion before she registered him appearing behind her. A moment later, she felt her ponytail go taut as the boy grabbed it and then jumped. What the oh fars? Yugito screamed as she was literally pulled into the air and then, with blinding pain, was flipped by her ponytail and sent hurtling back to the ground. She managed to twist in the air and land on her hands and feet, hissing in rage. The second Naruto landed, Yugito pounced, unconsciously tapping into the Nekomatis chakra. Her now enhanced eyes registered his brief flash of surprise, her ear picked up the sound of his heartbeat doubling and then her hand plunged into his lung. Pulling him close with her other hand, she grinned, revealing in the wonderful feeling of his beak coating her fingers and claws. He clutched at her shirt tightly, his fingers surprisingly strong even in death, his eyes fixed on her face. Yugito grinned and gave him a mocking K before, with a wet plop, she pulled her hand free and tossed him aside. Satisfied that she had well and truly K him this time, she turned away, only to pause. The air was suddenly hot and filled with an oppressive presence. Turning back slowly, she felt her eyes widen as she found the boy climbing back to his feet once more, tendrils of orangish red chakra coiling and twisting around him. Her enhanced eyes darted to the wound she had inflicted, and she felt her mouth go dry as it healed with frightening speed. Looking up, she found his whisker marks thick and dark, his hair bushier, and his eyes and glowing red. Not a bloodline. Yugito couldn't help but bare her fangs in displeasure as she saw his face. Naruto was snarling at her, but it looked very much like a disturbed smile. A Jinchuriki. A heartbeat later, both Beiyu-enhanced ninja charged each other. Remember, Anko's voice hissed in Ino's ear through the radio, don't act until I give the signal. I'm not stupid, Ino hissed back angrily, trying to keep from rustling the bushes she was hidden in. The plan, which Anko had devised shortly after Shino had left, was simple enough. Namely, Ino hidden, after Anko had engaged the two Jonin, the Kenjutsu user was to spring out and K1. The only problem with this plan that Ino could see, was the fact that it counted on her actually managing to KA Jonin. A Chunin, Ino felt, she should be able to manage. A Jonin seemed impossible, that was a good word. An accurate word. Maybe if she was Naruto or Sasuke it wouldn't be, but Ino had no faith in her ability to actually KA Jonin. 20 or so minutes later, she was forced to set her thoughts on the impossibility of her task aside. First to arrive in the clearing was a young woman, maybe a year or so older than Ino, with black hair, and dressed in an odd combo of navy pants and a sleeveless black and white shirt. She was soon joined by a young man. He had the same kind of attractiveness as Sasuke, dressed in the same type of outfit as the girl. Oh, so it's Aoi, eh? Anko said, sounding amused as she emerged from the trees, munching on her dango. Ah, it's Anko-chan, the female Jonin said excitedly. Aoi-san, it's Anko-chan. I can see that, Sora, the young man named Aoi said, a tiny smile on his lips as he causally removed the hilt that was hanging from his waist. So, Anko-senpai, is there a reason you're so far from home? Oh, no, Anko said casually, flicking the finished dango stick away. I heard that Stone Country had great dango. KU2 is just icing on my dango. Anko-chan, don't you remember me? Sora said, sounding slightly hurt. Anko said, blinking then snapped her fingers. Aha, you're that girl, from the Chunin exams a few years ago. So, you've made Jonin. Yep, just got the promotion, Sora said happily, bouncing on the balls of her feet. So, this is my first Jonin mission, too. So, what are you doing out here? Like I said, Anko returned with a grin and producing a kunai, dango. But, it's nice to see that you've managed to get over that whole, I'm a girl, I'm only supposed to be a object, concept you had. Thanks. Sora beamed back happily. It's only, 'cause of your test, though, that I figured that out. So, I owe you a lot, Anko-chan. Well, let's get started, shall we? Anko said, shifting her weight slightly to start the fight. Quote. Just a minute, Aoi said, the hilt of his sword blazing to life with yellow lightning. Let me invite our party crasher, okay. Ino blinked, then, realizing what he meant, moved a split second before he lunged to her hiding spot and both the tree and the bushes in half. Rolling to a stop, Ino regained her feet and turned, pulling her own sword. The man smirked, shifting his attention from her to Anko and then back. Ah, must be getting old, Anko, if you gotta rely on cheap tricks like that. Aoi? Anko chirped happily, I'm going to your skin off in S1 at a time, letting you only after hours of excruciating pain. Nice mental image, Sora whistled in amazement, I'm impressed Anko-chan. Ino nodded mutely, feeling slightly sick at the image she had just painted. Plus, that K intent was so strong that even Ino could feel it. Aoi even looked slightly panicked, which wasn't surprising, since Naruto was the only one she could see being unfazed. So, can I fight Anko-chan? Sora asked anxiously, like a little child begging. Please, Aoi-san. I really want to fight her, and you can have her, Aoi said, eyes glinting malevolently as he stared at Ino. I prefer blondes anyway. Tensing, Ino shifted her weight to rest on her back foot while the tip of her sword rose to aim between his eyes. Whatever doubts she had, they couldn't exist now, she had to fight, and she had to win. Aoi seemed to grin at her, then lunged forward with unbelievable speed, with several powerful S. Ino ducked and dodged as best they could, unprepared for the speed of his assault. Leaping back she channeled the chakra along her blade, and landing, drove it into the ground. The earth rumbled, then exploded, forcing Aoi to jump. The Jonin used part of the flying debris to change directions, and Ino just barely managed to dodge as he a tree behind her down the middle. Skidding to a halt, Ino felt her eyes widen in surprise, realizing just how effortlessly he had done that. My, you're fast. And using such an advanced kenjutsu style, Aoi said as he stood, the sword crackling as he lifted it horizontally before his face. It's nothing, though, before Raijin Ken. What the hell kind of sword is that? Ino panted, eyeing both it and him warily. The ultimate weapon, it was the weapon of the Nadaime Hokage. This lightning blade can see through anything, before it, nothing can stand. Not even your new Godaime's pathetically famed Reikiri or the Yondaime's wretched Rasengan. Tightening her grip, Ino narrowed her eyes. Her fear was now supplanted with something different, righteous fury. Aoi had stolen from her family, insulted the Hokage, and insulted Naruto's dad. With a scream, Ino darted forward, her sword sweeping to the side then around, the fury of her assault forcing him to dodge back in surprise. Aoi recovered quickly, and, ducking her next S at his face, made a thrust at her stomach. Ino, realizing the danger, threw her body to the side, even as a flare of pain flashed through her. Ino's shoulder and back hit the ground, but she adjusted her body through a flare of pain to regain her feet smoothly. Panting, her hand instinctively moved to her left side, where her fingers grew slick with what she knew instinctively to be B. Wincing, she moved her hand back to the hilt of her kodaki and stared at the man, who looked mildly impressed. You are a nimble one, aren't you? Aoi said, shifting his weapon around into a new position. You managed to dodge, in that split second, just enough to avoid an instantly fatal blow. Let's see if you can do it again. Tsujimazuki had, upon escaping Hyotoshi, known his choices were limited. How could he not, after escaping from that hell? Having already betrayed Konoha once, he had very few options. Being the bodyguard for Bokai's courier had been the top choice. It had offered him a chance at possibly joining another village. Mizuki was not stupid. He knew he was not the strongest of ninja. Oh, true, he had the potential to be great, and he had been overlooked, but he held no delusions. A moderately strong Chunin had no hope of a village taking him in, at least without something of value. Still, all things considered, he was beginning to doubt his chances. When he had learned exactly who the buyers were, he knew how unlikely it was for him to live much longer. Lightning Ninja never accepted missing nins. Even when he had seen Aoi again, he had known better than to hope. Still, he had a chance. It was slim, but it was his. Aoi was actually much weaker than him. It was only because of the sword he wielded that he was granted a Jonin rank and allowed into lightning. If Mizuki K him and took the Raijin Ken, he would stand a decent chance of living through this situation. So, while the two Lightning Jonin checked that the offered information was good, Mizuki sat watching the whiny courier and planning. When would be the best time to strike? How should he do it? That Jonin, the girl, she was a wild card. Would she protect Aoi or let him s? Mizuki was patient. He waited for the perfect moment and then struck. It was one of his favorite lessons to teach in the academy, that sometimes the strongest didn't win, but the most patient. The most cunning, the one who could hold back until the perfect moment. Glaring at the courier, who was busy chewing on a pencil, Mizuki wondered at how foolish Bokai was. This man had given up nearly every piece of information with little prompting. If Bokai was planning to defect, he should have known better than select such a courier. Indeed, it had only been due to Mizuki that they had anything left to bargain with, anything to entice Aoi to let his guard down long enough for Mizuki to K him. Ugh, I thought you said this place didn't have bugs. Looking around once more, Mizuki raised an eyebrow, watching the man swat at his arm. Shifting his attention to the door, then the window, he sprang to his feet, realizing what was happening. Kaikaichu. Kaikaichu, the courier asked, sounding confused. Yay, special bugs that live inside a member of the Aberame clan, Mizuki explained, shifting his stance slightly. Usually they strike well before you see them. This one is warning us. Which means, Shino. Mizuki-sensei, the Aberame in question said from overhead. So, I take it you got promoted, eh? Mizuki said, without looking up. He wasn't surprised. Shino had been a very talented student and one of the top graduates. Of course he would have been promoted, and only Chunin or above was sent on this sort of mission. You were supposed to protect me. The courier shouted, bolting for the door. Fool, Mizuki muttered as the man was suddenly tripped and subdued by a swarm of bugs. Finally looking up, he prepared himself for the coming fight. You know, the person I work for could always use another ninja. Governor Bokai, Shino said, is most likely S by now. Mizuki felt his mouth go dry. Shino was not known for lying. To make things more difficult, all of the tells you could usually use to discover a lie were denied to Mizuki. Shino did not show emotion, his eyes were hidden, and his body language muted by that jacket. Can I ask who it was? Naruto, Shino said. He has become a very efficient and dependable ninja. Mizuki blinked, his memory flashing back to that night in the forest, that humiliating fight. That Naruto, that loser. He was now on such a level. Impossible, but Shino didn't seem as if he was lying. Opening his mouth to say something, he instead dodged the first attack of Kaikachu. They spear of bugs scattered against the floor, and Mizuki hurled a series of 7 needles at the boy overhead. Naturally, the needles were absorbed by a wall of bugs, but that was Mizuki's plan. Turning, he abandoned the courier and jumped through the window. Landing on the street adroitly, he took off. After all, you never fought an Aberame within an enclosed space. With those bugs, they could control the area. Halfway down the street, he heard the sound of Shino giving chase and grinned, leaving behind a bunchen and an exploding note. A few moments later, Mizuki heard the satisfying noise of the explosion and he felt a tad disappointed. It had been such a simple trick. Shino should have been able to avoid it. Then, sensing an attack from the left, he dodged, watching as a spear made of bugs passed through the space he had just occupied. You've improved, Mizuki said, glancing at the boy on the left before narrowing his eyes as another Shino appeared on the right. A lot. Slipping a kunai from his sleeve, he brandished it expertly as he darted toward the one of the right. Ducking under a punch, he lunged, driving the blade into his stomach. Almost instantly, the Shino he had struck exploded into a swarm of bugs, and he spun, just in time to avoid the other Shino's attack. Darting left, then right to avoid 2 more punches, Mizuki sprang forward, shoving an arm aside to drive his blade home in the boy's X. I thought I taught you to never pick a fight with a stronger fighter. Mizuki lectured with a vicious smirk as the boy clutched at his wrist. His smirk faded, however, as Shino opened his mouth and emitted a swarm of Kaikachu directly at him. Desperate, the older Chunin tried to yank his arm free, but discovered it was now trapped within the grasp of an even larger horde of bugs. No, it couldn't be. It couldn't. Mizuki's last thoughts as the bugs swarmed over him and down into his lungs, was just how impossible it was for someone as strong as him to be outsmarted with nothing more than a series of bunshin made of bugs. The fight was out of control, past out of control. Flashes of blackish purple and orangish red chakra. The air filled with a malevolent evil and cold intelligence. They had both long since abandoned their jutsu, all that existed was the physical. Naruto could feel himself losing control, he felt it both inside and outside of his body. Both in control and out of control of himself. Batting away a kick, he retaliated with a punch, only to receive a sidekick to the ribs. Roaring in anger, Naruto recovered and lunged, claw-like fingers plunging for the girl's C. Yugito batted his arms aside and grasped his T, her own claw-like fingers L his F. Naruto lashed out instinctively, searing her cheek with his claws, and she dropped him. Landing, Naruto spun, taking her legs out with a sweep before dropping an axe kick into her stomach. Yugito quickly recovered and scrambled to her feet, but Naruto beat her there and brought his foot up into her face with a spray of B. Stunned though she was, it didn't stop her from latching a hand onto his leg and slinging him around into a tree. Naruto managed to regain his feet, but Yugito had apparently recovered and was now seemingly in a berserker rage. Naruto threw himself to the side, skidding on his hands and the balls of his feet, then darted forward, fangs bared. Weaving his way through her wild attacks, he caught her leg and flipped himself on his side, tossing her over his shoulder. Spinning around, he charged before he had recovered and tackled her from behind. Yugito retaliated with a sharp elbow to his ribs and then, grabbing his head, threw him over her shoulder. Landing heavily, he had only a moment to register the change when she suddenly landed on his stomach, plunging her fingers at his face. Grasping her hands, he hissed, muscles going taut as he struggled against the girl. Suddenly pulling her arms wide and down, he drove his head up, smacking his forehead into her face. Reeling back, Yugito shifted her weight, and Naruto struck out once more, knocking her off of him. A second later, Naruto tried to scramble on top of her, but she knocked him away with a kick. Recovering, the blonde regained his feet in a crouch, his mouth filled with the familiar taste of his own B. Yugito was crouched across from him, her eyes narrowed and B coursing down her cheek and chin. There was a moment of silence, then Yugito screamed and charged him once more. Naruto, however, dodged each of her blows, then caught a punch and twisted her arm. He heard the gasp of pain and followed up with a round kick to her ribs, then her face. He released her arm a moment later and spun, planting a reverse sidekick to her stomach. It lifted Yugito off her feet, but instead of crashing to the ground, she landed nimbly, and crouched, her eyes narrowing. Naruto didn't know what was going on, only that he felt the urge to keep attacking. To L her T out with his teeth, to rend her with his hands. He had never felt like this, never, but it was so natural. Dimly, he felt that this had to be the QB's influence, and he struggled against it. Now it was clear, she was also a Jinchuriki, and they were both being guided by the demons to cripple and K the other. He felt a moment of clarity, a moment as he gained control over his body. The QB's instincts were being mastered, Naruto knew it and felt a thrill. All this power was his now, no more of the QB trying to control his body. Yugito leaped into the air with a jumping front kick, but instead found a fist plowing into her solar plexus. Her eyes went wide in surprise as the air was driven completely out of her. She hung there for a moment and then fell to the ground, followed by a kick to her stomach sending her skidding along the ground. She dug her fingers into the ground and, somehow, amazingly, righted herself. In the space of a breath, she was charging towards him, a battle cry on her lips. Naruto stepped to the side, letting Yugito sail by with the momentum of her charge, then turned as she pivoted and came at him with everything she had. Naruto, however, didn't blink. Now that he was in control, he had the upper hand of this fight. His fingers flashed to the Taurus seal, he took a deep breath of air and released it, backed by the chakra he now possessed. The futon, Daitopper, he remembered, was more devastating in his hands than normal. He had seen it uproot trees and snap giant oaks in half, always with a build-up or a howl of wind. The futon, Daitopper he unleashed with the aid of the QB's chakra was as far removed from the previous versions, as a breezy day was from a hurricane. The storm of wind exploded into being instantly, the wind did not howl or roar, it screamed so loud that it hurt to hear. The blast of wind L through the air unchecked, it tore gouges from the earth, obliterated boulders, trees, and even part of a small rock outcropping that bordered on a mountain. It lasted for a good 20 minutes, and when it finally ended, there was nothing left in its path. The futon, Daitopper, had obliterated everything, while blasting the very ground to glass. Naruto stared in silent awe at the sheer devastation of the attack. If he had used it in Konoha, it would have wiped out a whole block. Then the ground in front of him cracked, a series of spider webs spreading out rapidly. A moment later, a fist exploded from underground, then an arm, before both leveraged against the ground to lift the owner up to reveal a battered Yugito. Her face livid with bruises, her clothes almost in tatters. She heaved, her feet finding purchase, and then shot forward with inhumane speed, eyes blazing with rage. Naruto's heightened senses let him follow her progress. She tried to fake him out with a fake right punch, but actually launched a left round kick. He reacted flawlessly, performing three things at once. He pivoted on his foot, dropped a hand to block her kick, and drove a back elbow into her cheek. Yugito dropped like a stone, but she lashed out with a kick to his stomach, followed by a front kick, which sent him sprawling backwards. Hissing, Naruto rolled to his feet and shook his head to clear it of the pain, then he felt an upswing in the chakra from Yugito. Focusing on the girl, his eyes widened as her chakra darkened and began to take shape around her. Snapping her eyes open, Yugito screamed, forcing the demonic chakra to materialize into the swirling black and purple miasma of flames that represented the Nibi. Falling forward, the evil chakra surrounding her, she arched her back, taking on the appearance, finally, of the massive demonic cat. Naruto froze, and Neko Yugito opened her mouth, emitting a massive ball of chakra. Naruto instinctively tried to dodge, tried to get out of the path, but the ball ate into him. He felt his body break and shatter, felt his skin peel. He felt his life ebbing away, yet he refused to admit defeat, demanded the power to win this fight. He wasn't sure if it was a dream, or real, but he saw the massive cage and benhined it the malevolent eyes of what could only be the Kyuubi. Heard the cold biting voice of the Kyuubi whispering to him. Kakukaku. So weak. You should thank me. Naruto felt his body convulse, his felt like it was boiling, his body burned hotter than anything he had ever felt. It was searing, blinding heat that consumed him from the inside out. He felt his body painfully heal, his mind, however, was disappearing. He was losing control. He struggled and fought against it, but he could feel the evil he had only vaguely sensed before, swallowing him whole. Suddenly, he was trapped inside his own body, unable to control it as his body jerked upright and then down into a crouching position. He both felt and saw the boiling red chakra surrounding him take the shape of a long-eared fox. Then, through the smoke and rubble, he reared back and hurled his arms forward, sending a pair of massive orangish red arms toward the prey, rending the earth apart as they sought her. Nimbly avoiding the attack, Neko Yugito emitted another blast. The long ears of Kyuubi Naruto twitched, then the younger monster turned and, flinging his arms out wide, unleashed a chakra-enhanced scream of rage. The blast of chakra exploded in a blinding display. Overhead, the clouds began to darken and swirl ominously. Sora was not stupid, Anko knew that much. Dodging the other woman's weapons, Anko grinned to herself. Sora definitely knew not to let her get close. A moment later, Anko was forced to race backwards as a series of lightning bolts exploded from the ground. Skidding to a halt, Anko panted from exertion. Got a new trick, huh? One of many. Sora smirked. Reitan, Chikiyori was just a warning. You know, from one Kunoiki to another. Gee, thanks, Anko said, thrusting her hand forward as she released her own jutsu. Senator Harshu. Snakes exploding from the sleeve of her jacket, twisting as they plunged through the air. Sora, unexpectedly, began forming a series of rapid, but calm, seals. Reryuden no Jutsu. A moment later, Anko's snakes were consumed by a massive dragon made of lightning. Swearing, Anko threw herself to the side, regained her feet, and fired off a series of kunai, which were expertly dodged. Okay, so Sora had definitely earned her Jonin rank. Shifting slightly, Anko began trying to select a jutsu to counter the girl's lightning attacks. Sadly, Anko only had one, maybe two, wind jutsu. So, Anko, what you think? Have I gotten better? I'd say yes, Anko admitted warily. Really? Great. I have this one jutsu I want your opinion on, K. Sora said brightly, before flashing another series of seals. Baisu Reryuden no Jutsu. In the half-heartbeat that took to launch, Anko unleashed her own jutsu before she realized what she was facing. Anko's futon, Daitopper clashed violently with Sora's multiple lightning dragons, which resulted in a beautiful and blinding display of light. Wow, Sora said breathlessly, staring from behind her hand. No wonder they call you, Sama, in Konoha. That was fast, and, Kami, you handled all 10 lightning dragons with one jutsu. Panting and feeling her arms tremble from the amount of extra chakra she had forced into that jutsu at the last second, Anko smiled faintly. Thanks, gotta say. That last one was definitely AK. Top notch. Thanks. Sora beamed, producing a series of kunai. I created it myself, and I was worried it wouldn't work. Anko quickly began dodging the weapons as they whistled through air, twisting and coming perilously close to the blades. Ayami Tori, Anko hissed, hurling a weighted string at Sora, strengthening the thread with her chakra to the point that it could see through steel. Sadly, even that technique failed as Sora launched another Reryuden. Okay, this was getting tedious now. Glancing briefly at Ino, Anko almost swore. The girl was being heavily from her side while dodging I's blade. Focusing on a grinning Sora, Anko sighed. It was time to stop playing. Okay, Sora, I'll admit it, Anko said slowly, standing upright while gathering her chakra. You've gotten dangerous. I recognize you as a serious threat. Really? Sora said excitedly, like a little girl that had been given an early present. Wow, I've waited so long for. But you know, Anko continued, beginning to form seals, that's not a good thing. Why not? Because it means I notice you now, Anko said coldly, finishing her jutsu. Gianto Nenten Hebi no Jutsu. A moment later the earth rumbled and then exploded as 2 giant snakes shot after the now airborne Sora. The younger girl looked surprised, but was professionally forming her own seals. Watching intently, impressed that the girl had grown so much, Anko calmly slipped a kunai into her hand, took aim and threw. Sora reached the apex of her leap and launched her counter to Anko's jutsu, a beautiful display to say the least, then looked around at the last second. Sadly it was too late. Anko had timed her throw just right, and Sora now had a kunai plunged through her heart. It was almost bittersweet to watch the woman's body go limp and then plummet to the ground with a dull thump. Holding back, to ensure the other woman was really Anko sighed. Walking over, she stared at the limp form for a second before rolling Sora over and retrieving her kunai. And if I notice you, that means I K you. Standing, Anko sighed, turning her attention to the only remaining ninja in the clearing. With an unnatural nimbleness, QB Naruto hopped to one side, narrowly dodging a fiery blast from Neko Yugito and then darted in delivering a double-fisted blow that knocked the slightly larger Messima cat into the air and back 50 feet. The Neko Yugito fell to the earth and skidded for several extra feet before coming to a stop. Its body weight shifted, chakra claws gouging the ground as it shifted the stance to distribute its weight more evenly. Then QB Naruto came crashing down upon it, his chakra claws down the cat's C in a crosswise motion. As the cat staggered back under the assault, the QB Naruto crouched low and swung himself in a tight arc, the boiling chakra tail into the side of the Neko Yugito's chakra. The cat rolled against the blow expertly, a chakra foot out knocking the chakra fox away. QB Naruto twisted again, in a way that no natural creature should be able to, and landed nimbly. Neko Yugito, however, had already launched itself at the distracted QB Naruto. With an almost gleeful roar the cat's head swung in, narrow jaws parted wide. The 2 chakra-manifested creatures clashed with a flash of dark light and rolled together from the momentum. A moment later, QB Naruto used its right arm and grabbed Neko Yugito, and the female Jinchuriki paused, as if confused by the contact. With a furious bellow the QB Naruto doubled over, pulling at the same time and tossing the Messima-encased ninja over its shoulder. As the cat crashed down, kicking up a cloud of dust, the QB Naruto swung his left arm down and across. Neko Yugito moved with an inexplicable speed, managing to roll to one side and push itself off the ground and into a low crouch, dodging the blow as the chakra claws tore through the earth as if it were nothing. A second later, it spat forth a volley of miniature chakra blasts, causing QB Naruto to duck and dodge with its abnormal speed and grace. Then suddenly Neko Yugito caught Kyuubi Naruto full on with a blast in mid-leap, knocking the chakra fox backward through the air. Neko Yugito backed away with several leaps, the human host's cat-like eyes, staring at the rock outcropping that had been destroyed by the hurt Kyuubi Naruto. There was a sudden rumble from beneath its feet and Neko Yugito leaped high, twisting around the twin boiling chakra arms and claws that exploded from under it. A rock cropping suddenly exploded as Kyuubi Naruto used its arms to grab the ground and hurl it forward like a slingshot. Neko Yugito was caught in midair as Kyuubi Naruto into her with unbelievable force. The unexpected impact knocked Neko Yugito over, but with pure instinct, Neko Yugito rolled with the movement, managing to wedge her legs between their b. Still rolling backwards, Neko Yugito heaved and bucked with all its might, kicking out hard against the chakra fox. Kyuubi Naruto was launched high into the air, but twisted bizarrely and using a chakra arm pulled itself back to the ground instantly. Spinning it crossed those boiling chakra arms, rearing back on chakra-encased legs and roared a challenge. Neko Yugito roared back and then charged, only to unexpectedly have Kyuubi Naruto's chakra tail explode from under the ground. It connected with the Mesmia chakra shell sharply, rocking Neko Yugito's head back. The chakra-encased ninja reeled up, then backward from the blow, but its lithe body swung up and over, landing lightly amidst the surviving rock outcroppings. Neko Yugito bent her legs until her knees were almost touching the ground and then, a roar of her own, she kicked off and into the air. Kyuubi Naruto watched as she rose against the backdrop of a rain-filled sky, then launched himself to meet her in the leap. The chakra-shelled Jinchuriki clashed together overhead, then plummeted back to the ground with a cloud of debris. A moment later the two leapt away from each other, landing on their respective sides of the small crater they had created. Kyuubi Naruto only had a moment to study the Neko Yugito before it was upon him, raining blows onto the chakra fox shell. Caught off guard he staggered back, trying to ward off her attacks, then twisted kicking her in the sea of her chakra cat shell. Neko Yugito teetered back and barely managed to duck under a swing at its head. Unfortunately, Kyuubi Naruto's other arm curved in at the same time, chakra tearing through the chakra shell to graze the Jinchuriki's arm. Then with a supreme predator's speed Kyuubi Naruto reached out with one chakra-clawed hand and gripped her tightly by the ankle, jerking her around while his other cupped the back of her chakra shell's head, tossing her away while his right leg lashed out and the heel of his foot crashed into her chakra shell's sternum. Neko Yugito crashed into the earth with unbelievable force, kicking up a cloud of dust that soon turned to mud in the storm. The female Jinchuriki heaved itself upright once more, but both paused in their fight, staring at the other. A sense of something filling the air, a type of anticipation that escaped words as both Jinchuriki realized something fundamental. Then with a roar, they lunged into the climactic battle that would have left many minor hidden villages in shambles. Ino panted, dodging and weaving her way from the grinning pretty boy attacking her. The hair on the back of her end was standing on end from the amount of lightning in the air. Kami, as if fighting a Jonin while wounded wasn't bad enough, it had to be a freak that knew the fire country style of Kenjutsu and wielding a blade that could see through anything. Aois at her, forcing Ino to drop and kick at his legs. The Jonin jumped, allowing Ino to throw herself into a backward roll. Regaining her feet, hand darting to her side, she hissed in pain, eye closing slightly. As long as I wield the Raijin Ken, you have no hope of beating me. Aoi bragged, twirling the blade through the air. Ino had a sudden epiphany, realizing the only solution to the problem. Yes, as long as he wielded that blade of lightning she couldn't beat him. The solution, then, was to make it so he couldn't hold the sword. Ino narrowed her eyes, hands tightening around the hilt of her kodaki and then shot forward, darting right, then left to attack his flank. Aoi dodged at the last second, eyes wide, as he started backpedaling frantically. Ino didn't let up once, ducking or weaving through his wild attacks, but always driving him back. His Raijin Ken struck nothing. Ino was moving too fast, reading him too clearly. She would have marveled at this, but she was busy. Vision blurring, Ino ducked a wild, downward chop, then her kodaki flashed out, neatly severing F and bone in a spray of B. Ino was moving, even as the hand holding the Raijin Ken sailed harmlessly through the air. A half heartbeat later his other hand followed. Aoi screamed, crumpling to his knees, his mouth slack, staring up at her in shock. Ino, however, stumbled, the blinding pain in her side overwhelming her senses. Her head swam, her arm felt so heavy. Gritting her teeth, Ino managed a final S, and the older ninja toppled over headless. Ino tried to laugh, but her fingers went slack, allowing her kodaki to slip away. Then, suddenly, she hit the ground with a thump, her side filled with a burning pain. Her mind drifted for a moment, then snapped back into focus as Anko's face came into view. The older woman was staring down at her casually, a kunai twirling around her finger. Ino opened her mouth to say something, but decided not to waste the energy on the bee. Anko seemed oblivious to this as she knelt at her side and, using a kunai, s away the pre-existing bandages around her wound. Not too deep. Ino couldn't help but yelp as she felt Anko prod her wound with a finger. You won't be s, but that's gonna leave a scar. What? Ino managed, breathing through her teeth heavily. Medical jutsu doesn't leave scars. Medical jutsu. Never learned any, Anko explained as she pulled a kunai out and began forming a seal. All my focus went into how to K things. You're just lucky I know how to cauterize wounds. See cauterize. Ino mumbled, then watched in mounting fear as Anko breathed out a small ball of fire at the kunai until it seemed to turn darker. The bee loss slowed her thought processes down just enough that she didn't realize what exactly Anko was planning until the woman turned to her with a sadistic grin. Now, this is going to hurt a lot. But I won't enjoy this, Anko said, her grin growing as Ino screamed when the searingly hot blade came into contact with her skin. Okay, I lied. I'm enjoying the hell out of this. Thrashing, Ino screamed her T raw, then felt a hand S into her C and pin her against the ground. Stay still, otherwise, it'll just get worse. Whatever part of Ino's mind that consuted, Ino, retreated from the searing pain. She screamed for what felt like hours, until, finally, the blade was removed, and her body reported the burning pain fading. Breathing heavily, Ino stared sightlessly at the brightening sky overhead, tears coursing down her cheeks. It was almost like being born again when Ino finally came back to herself. The first thing she felt was someone gently bandaging her side. Lifting her head, she stared at the woman who had just teed her, putting the final touches on a bandage before sitting back. So, Anko said, raising an eyebrow curiously. Can you talk? Ino hesitated, thought about what to say, then decided on the only suitable response. Ow. I said the same thing. Anko chirped happily. Jiraiya hated the rain. It had rained when Tsunade started dating Dan. It had rained when Orochimaru, his best friend at the time, became a traitor. It had rained when the Yondaime S, and when his first book flopped. It had even rained during Sarutobi's funeral. It was raining now, pouring down, all across the rocky countryside. The Sannin, however, was focused on the massive amount of chakra he felt being tossed around. It was not normal chakra, he knew that sort of chakra from his years of experience, and he was rushing toward it. The frog he was riding, not Gamabunta who was temperamental, but a strong enough toad that could make extremely fast time. Aonasai, how much longer? One more hop, the large toad croaked back, heaving itself high into the air. Jiraiya winced as the rain struck his face rapidly, then whistled as the toad began to descend. After landing, the large creature disappeared in a puff of smoke, and the toad sage dropped expertly to the ground. For a moment, he felt nothing, then an unbelievable amount of evil intent washed over him. Hurrying through the sparse forest, he leapt to the top of a large boulder and froze, mouth gaping open. There, to the left, was a miniature orangish red one-tailed fox made of boiling chakra, and to the right was a slightly larger purplish-black one-tailed cat made of swirling chakra. Naruto, and pausing, he searched for the memory of the name of the Kumo Jinchuriki Yugito. Neko Yugito lunged, her chakra claws extended, but Kyubi Naruto s her aside with an arm made of chakra, then s his other hand into her, pushing her deep into the side of the nearby mountain. A moment later, Kyubi Naruto was forced to dodge as a blast of some sort emerged, landing on a boulder where he managed to change his momentum as no normal ninja could. He leapt aside of the blast, rebounded off an overhead outcropping and dropped like a stone on the emerging Neko Yugito. The girl managed to twist inhumanely as well, throwing him to the ground, but Kyubi Naruto managed another impossible feat and twisted her around, shoving her back into the side of the mountain. Neko Yugito somehow managed to grasp the orange-flamed Naruto and threw him to the ground, where he rolled to his feet and pivoted in one motion while sending a chakra arm hurling at her. No, 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 Jiraiya murmured, kneeling as he began rummaging through his sealing materials. He had to do something. They were close to the northern border between Kusa no Kuni and Konoha, which was the only space between Tsuchi no Kuni and Hai no Kuni. The patrols on the Great Wall would undoubtedly feel this, and ninja could arrive at any moment. Plus, even more importantly, Naruto had no experience at this level. The Kyuubi could easily overwhelm his personality. Sensing something, the Sannin looked up and swore. Neko Yugito was airborne and firing an energy blast at his general location. Grabbing up his materials, Jiraiya jumped, hit the ground, rolled several feet, then stood. Turning, he watched as the boulder he had been on, along with the surrounding landscape, was obliterated. Damn, Jiraiya muttered, turning his attention back to the brawling chakra animals. Kyuubi Naruto S1 of his massive red hands into the chakra cat, sending it flying again. Neko Yugito rebounded, landed easily, and emitted another blast of chakra at her target. This time, Kyuubi Naruto didn't move. Instead, he crossed his arms and hunched before flinging them wide and screaming. There was a loud explosion as chakra blast hit chakra scream, forcing Jiraiya to cover his ears, then the world went white from an explosion. As the light receded, Jiraiya squinted through the brightness and felt his mouth go dry. Naruto had his hand outstretched, guiding the massive chakra arm into making a trench in the ground while carrying a weakly struggling Neko Yugito backward. Then, the girl was against a large rock. Repeatedly. Jiraiya knew instinctively that this fight was over. The Nekomata's chakra was flickering in and out with each S before it went out completely, as the girl's head dropped forward. Turning his attention to the remaining Jinchuriki, Jiraiya prepared for the worst, but instead found the boy pressing one of his hands against the side of his head and snarling. "I'm not a demon," Naruto screamed as the boiling chakra flickered. "I'm not the Kyuubi." The snarl turned into a pained expression as the boiling chakra began to dissolve, and Naruto collapsed to his hands and knees. "I Muzumaki. Naruto." With that, the blonde promptly collapsed in a total heap. Silence filled the air, as if noise had been eradicated. Hesitating, the large man created a cage bunchen to check on the girl. Then, creating another cage bunchen, he hanged it into a three-sided tent before quickly moving to check on Naruto. Rolling the boy over, he frowned. Naruto was beat from the ears and nose, unsurprising, considering the sheer amount of willpower it took to forcibly suppress such chakra without training. Actually, Jiraiya had never seen a Jinchuriki do that without training, since during the first major knife stain of the first level, the Beiyu overwhelmed their hosts. Shaking it off, he lifted Naruto's shirt to reveal his stomach and the now glowing seal it contained, while forming the one-handed seals. Taking a moment to study the seal, he frowned while applying the imperfect Gogyu Fuan. Settling back as the Kyuubi's chakra and influence were disrupted complete, he scooped up the runt and carried him back under the tent. Making a fire, he sighed, turning to study his other cage bunchen, who was tending to the girl. What had the Yondaime been thinking, modifying that seal in such a way? The Shishu Fuan and Shiki Fujin were obvious, one to seal the demon and the other to allow Naruto access to the power, but that last one, the Haka no Fuan Shiki, seemed to act as a sort of merging process or binding. It was as if the Yondaime had been trying to tie the Kyuubi's being to that of Naruto. Why bother, though? It was a pointless then. Suddenly, Jiraiya realized the only explanation. It was brilliant. It was also a very despicable thing to do. The problem with Jinchuriki was that, when they unless the Beiyu was transferred to a new host, it escaped. This process merged, the Kyuubi to Naruto's soul so that, when Naruto the Kyuubi would as well. The Yondaime had found the only way to actually kill an immortal demon. Naruto would, in essence, be the ultimate Jinchuriki in every sense of that word. Pushing that aside, along with the consideration of whether he should tell Naruto, he heaved himself up once more, heading for the girl and the cage bunchen. Coming to a stop, he considered her, then, flashing through a few seals, he summoned a medium-sized orange-brownish toad. Kneeling, Jiraiya carefully inked a memory modification seal on her forehead. Lifting his fingers, he activated the seal and then nodded at the cage bunchen to cover her exposed hands before placing her on the toad. "Okay, Isoguma, take her back to Lightning Country, but don't let yourself be seen, understand?" "Shouldn't the runt bring her back though?" Isoguma asked, staring down at the Sannin strangely. "Normally, I'd let him. It'd be a big feather in his cap, Jiraiya explained, shaking his head, but she'd get turned over to Ribiki-kun, who might eventually break through the memory seal I put on her. I can't risk that, because she knows something about the brat that is his private business. Aha, Isogama said in understanding, and then a croak later, the toad was gone, and Jiraiya sighed, collecting the sealing supplies that he'd dropped earlier. Moving back under the tent and shivering from the heat of the fire, he began a complicated sealing process. 20 minutes later, he finished his scroll, before applying his chakra, pulling in every ounce of the evil intent and demonic chakra that tainted the area. He rocked back as it finished, sweating and feeling as if he had been immersed underwater for several hours. After that, he carefully put the scroll up, such concentrated chakra and evil intent could used as a weapon later. Overhead, the rain abated slightly as he shifted through his materials and began penning the first page of his newest book. The basic concept was simple: boy meets girl's twin sister, chaos ensues. Humming along, he flew through the first half-dozen pages before a low groan made him pause. Turning, he looked over at the groggy ninja as he sat up and cradled his head. Naruto made another noise of annoyance, then coughed. Finally awake, Jiraiya asked, turning back to his new book. Ero Senin. Naruto mumbled, looking up in surprise. A moment later, Naruto sprang to his feet and looked around in confusion. Huh, where's she at? You didn't. After you went through the trouble of sparing her life. Jiraiya snorted. Nah, I got one of my frogs to give her a lift back to lightning. After I made sure her hands couldn't come into contact with him. Why? Her onijutsu, ya brat, the Shikyo Taki. Her what? Naruto repeated blankly, sounding totally out of it. Onijutsu, Jiraiya repeated slowly, are a unique brand of jutsu belonging exclusively to Jinchuriki. Jinch. People that have a biju sealed inside them, Jiraiya sighed, like you, remember. Anyway, onijutsu are unnatural abilities for any human, including the advanced bloodline clans, to possess. Since they come from a demon, they're termed onijutsu. What makes them unnatural? Take that girl you fought, Yugito. Until she met you, every single person she's ever touched has S instantly. Gaara. His sand grants him a nearly perfect defense, making it near impossible to damage him. Oh. Naruto said, lowering his eyes. I'm lucky, then, huh. I don't have any onijutsu. Actually, you do. A very powerful, and perhaps the most unnatural, one of the lot, Jiraiya explained, climbing to his feet to stretch. Your bloodline, Tenkichiyu, I've had Tsunade look at your medical report. It's not healing you, it's regenerating. No matter how much damage you receive, you can't S. Tsunade. I can't S. I needed her opinion, and she thinks it's a Kyuubi chakra-influenced bloodline. Gave her just enough truth to let her create her own conclusions. Jiraiya said, sitting back down, then, pausing, he shook his head. I should explain it differently. It's not that you can't S, it's just extremely difficult to KU. Take an instantly fatal blow, or try to use more Kyuubi chakra than your body can handle at one time, and you'll S. Naruto said, before frowning. So, I'm pretty much immortal. Baka, Jiraiya said. You are not immortal. Not even close. Just because you're harder to K than most doesn't mean jack. However, it is extremely unnatural and, hence, an onijutsu. Okay, Naruto said slowly, scowling. Oi. Why didn't Yugito use any jutsu, though? I mean, she had a lot of chakra, right? I mean, I know some use a lot of taijutsu. But shouldn't she have? Jinchuriki are never taught jutsu outside of basics, Jiraiya sighed. Since they're supposed to be super weapons, normal techniques are deemed pointless. The kicker is that practice makes the super weapons failures. Weapons, Jinchuriki. You talk like they're not human, Naruto said slowly, looking up from the fire to meet Jiraiya's gaze. Those words dehumanize and degrade. That, Naruto, is a matter of perspective, Jiraiya said with a long pause before continuing. Think of how most people in Konoha view advanced bloodlines, then realize that in other villages they are viewed, at best, as second-class citizens and, at worst, utter trash to be brutally eradicated. It's not the same, Naruto said heatedly. Why not? Because it's not. Naruto said forcefully, with a scowl. Well, you are sort of right. Advanced bloodlines, even in the villages that hate them, are at least considered a type of human. Jinchuriki are treated as nothing more than weapons, permitted no family or friends. No children, total isolation. However, never think that the suffering of one group outweighs the suffering of the other. Neither lead happy lives, nor are either truly accepted by the village they live in. Konoha accepts the bloodlines. That's because Konoha is different than the other villages. Jiraiya paused, mulling over whether he should continue, or if he should just call it a night and get Naruto back to Konoha. So, would they reject me? No, Jiraiya admitted after a moment. You'd be treated differently. They wouldn't view you as a hero anymore, your journey to Hokage would become nearly impossible. But Konoha would, ultimately, accept you. Prejudice in Konoha is a tricky thing. Don't risk it until you have no choice. I'll tell them one day, Naruto murmured, lowering his gaze back to the fire. A Hokage should never lie about what he really is. That, Naruto, Jiraiya said, startled to hear Sarutobi's words to Orochimaru echoed through this young boy, is perhaps the wisest thing you've ever said. You're not gonna be sick, are you? Huh? Naruto managed, coming out of his thoughts to look down at the massive toad he was riding. Nah, just thinkin'. Well, we'll be close to Konoha soon, the toad said, leaping into the air with very little effort. Great, Naruto murmured, drifting back into his thoughts. He wanted to be Hokage so badly, would be Hokage, but would that be possible once the village discovered his secret? A large, vocal part of him wanted to keep it quiet, never to reveal what he was. The villagers would hate him, no doubt, and picturing Ino's face if she found out made him sick. Of course, she might not care. Anko certainly hadn't, and Jiraiya treated him like any other person. They were special cases, though. There was no promise that Ino or even Iruka would accept him if they found out. Another part, the part that kept him moving toward Hokage, told him he had to tell them. The village and all of those he counted as important to him, they deserved to know what he truly was. Like he had told Ero Sennin, no Hokage should hide the truth about what he was. So, Naruto knew, beyond a doubt, that he would tell everyone. How and when were open to debate. All he knew was that it would be before he gained office. Who knew, if the kami smiled on him, they might not care. But that was foolish to the point of lunacy. Sighing, he resolved to shove this, as he had with all problems that would snap him if he dwelt on them, deep behind his mask of normalcy. Coming out of his thoughts, he realized that the village walls were in sight, and he grinned despite himself, patting the toad's head. Oi, let me off here. I wanna walk back. If you say so, the toad rumbled, landing with a heavy thump to allow the boy to hop off its head and land on the ground. Turning, Naruto gave it a thumbs up. Thanks for the lift. No biggie, the toad said in response before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Turning, Naruto set off at a brisk pace, whistling a jaunty tune, wondering how Anko and the others had done. Pausing briefly in a clearing with 3 posts, he grumbled at the memory of waking up tied to one. That had been a long time ago, but it was still in his memories, and for some reason Naruto kept reminiscing about the past. Forcing it aside, he set off once more, muttering about stupid masked perverts and their books. Coming out of the forest, he paused, watching 4 figures emerge from around the bend. Squinting in the moonlight, he thought at least one of them seemed familiar. Eyes widening, he grinned and waved a hand. Anko. Hey. Naruto. She called back. What the hell are you doing? Saying hi. Naruto answered as they drew close, flashing a smile at Ino, tossed a nod at Shino and wondered about the apparently unconscious man being carried by an Anko cage bunshin. Well, what if we were enemies? You'd get yourself revealing your location like that. Bah, I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Like I'd let myself Naruto bragged before grinning wider. Besides, who'd wanna pretend to be a psychotic bee like you? Probably someone that wanted to gut little pricks like you, runt, Anko shot back, smiling herself. So, have fun on the mission? Naruto asked, glancing from her to the others and then back as the group started toward the village. Well, Anko mused, gesturing at Ino with her stick of dango. Princess Ka Jonan, which was pretty funny to see since she nearly got herself gutted doing it. The bugger back there came Mizuki and captured the courier, and I, of course, had a nice workout and then took a nap. All in all, not a bad vacation. Naruto blinked, sweeping his gaze over them all before focusing on Ino. UKA Jonan. Of course, Ino sniffed haughtily, flipping her hair as best she could with its length as they reached the gates. So Anko's not drunk and making things up. No, Ino said, narrowing her eyes, while Anko grumbled. I really Ka Jonan, named Aoi. Are you sure he was Jonan? Don't you think I could do it? Ino snapped angrily. Ahaha, well, it's not that, Naruto said, trying to calm the girl down. I just mean, well, it's just really impressive, and usually Anko tries to hog all the good fights for herself. Quote. So, you think I can Ka Jonan? Ino repeated firmly, gaze not wavering. Of course, Naruto said, then, at her tiny smile, he couldn't help himself. If they were drunk and blind. What? Ino shrieked, causing Anko to snicker and Shino to sigh. What do you mean what? Naruto repeated, smiling. You really need to learn when you're being teased, Ino-chan. And you, Naruto-kun, need to learn when not to tease me. Ino said threateningly as she reached for her kodaki. How about you two save the flirting for after we're in the village, okay? Anko said in annoyance. Flirting. Ino shouted. Naruto, however, launched immediately into an attack. Anko, of course, happily returned the favor. The gate guards that had been watching in amusement whimpered at the chaos. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.